It's 7 o'clock. I'll open up the meeting of the Halifax Planning Board. Being done at 499 Plymouth Street in Halifax at the Selectmen's Meeting Room. This is Thursday, October 17th, 2024 at 7 p.m. Make notice that it's an open meeting, and the Planning Board meeting is recorded by Area 58 and can be reviewed on YouTube. Listing of the banner. All right, might as well get right into it. Let's get into the first one. It's continued 24-SPR-244 Arnold Vera site plan review application for map 73, lot 7A, Plymouth Street.
I don't see anybody here for that.
No.
The dates are in November, so
We're good?
Yeah.
we did that the last meeting. I think
Yeah.
it's like
Well,
November.
and at the last meeting-
November 19th or 20th.
Didn't Joe say that he actually got a chance to meet with actually John Shea from the historical, and he was relatively happy with it as long as the front was clapboards or whatever. I know he had some information on it, but
Did we receive a letter from
No.
Historical?
no.
I know
No.
that they met the night before our last planning board meeting, which would have been October 2nd.
All right.
I was in
As
there.
far as I know, I haven't seen anything go by that said anything specific. Yes, bad, good, whatever. So, well, let's put them up. Maybe they'll
I mean, as
show
long
up
as they're
later on.
as long as they're known that they have an extension, then they can kind of just show up
Yeah.
all the way to the last date, right?
I know, this has been kind of a odd thing. All right, let's move on then to the continuation of 285 Home Street, PSPR 24-1, site plan review application. Updated plans were delivered to the office of the planning board on 10/7/24. Hi Ann, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. So we have revised the plans. The Conservation Commission's review engineer had comments to the plans. Our engineer discussed them with him, made these revisions, followed up with him. And as a result, after we filed those plans, the Conservation Commission's review engineer submitted a letter dated October 8th, where he confirmed that all of his concerns had been met. And he noted in the conclusion that the proposed stormwater system will result in less runoff into Home Street than what was flowing to Home Street prior to the building addition and the clearing of the rear lot. And I don't know if you guys got a copy of that. I have an extra copy of the letter that went to the Concom.
I think she was hoping to get one from
Yeah.
Concom, but I don't know where she got
I
one.
think there is one in here. That was from the,
Conservation.
From PPC, October 8th.
You got anything?
there wasn't one in here.
I thought
This
it
is the
was
one from September 11th, 2025 regarding 285 Home Street. Did everybody get a copy of this one?
No,
I'll read it. Thank you. If you want to read it.
whatever you want. I'll read it.
Thank you, September 11th. This is Halifax Highway and Cemetery Department. Stephen Haywood, Highway Surveyor, 60 Hemlock Street. Did you get a copy of this, Ann? The September 11th one?
Yes, we responded to that
Oh,
as
okay.
well. Yeah.
All right. Thank you for addressing the issue with stormwater runoff at 285 Home Street. We did not have this issue before the addition and the back parking lot were enlarged. The owners did make a couple improvements that helped delay the water going across Home Street, but we still get a good amount of runoff flowing across Home Street during and after larger rain events. I would rather see the two overflow spillways directed anywhere other than Home Street. As I said, we did not have this issue before. And then he had a couple of diagrams on it, and is that the one you have in front of you? I would rather the spillway directed back to an area on the site, not to go onto Home Street. If the MBTA is okay with it, direct the overflow and some of the back parking lot to their ditch next to the tracks. Sincerely, Steve Haywood.
Right, no, so we responded in our response, in the engineer's response letter that was also submitted on October 7th to that letter from the highway surveyor. As those plans are revised, water is not being directed to Home Street in the ordinary course. And I spoke with representatives of the state. They will not permit us to discharge our water onto the MBTA.
Oh.
That request has been denied.
Oh.
But no, I was speaking to the letter from PGB Engineering, the review engineer for the Concom.
The one that you had? That your engineer?
No, that's.
No,
the
no,
Oh,
it's
Concom.
Pat.
Oh,
PGB sent
okay.
it.
All right.
He confirmed that all of the concerns that he had, that engineer, the town engineer had about the system were addressed in those revised plans. And he confirms at the end, in the last sentence, that this design is going to result in there being less water runoff to Home Street than there was before anything was done on this property. So as designed before, I know there's been a lot of discussion about the tree removal. He includes in the last paragraph, before the building addition and before the tree removal, what is going to Home Street, if this is constructed, will be less water than before any of that happened. So if you want to think about it as before a 2019 condition, if we do this, there'll be less water going to the road than there would have been in 2019.
Okay. I have a question. The drainage that was installed by Liddell, by 285, when was that done?
I don't know what, I mean, we don't have a plan of the property that predates.
That's my point. When it was, from my understanding, from when it was installed, there was no plan. It was just installed. And I believe in order to comply with conservation and state requirements, it has to be inspected beforehand. Now, as far as I know, the last hearing and information I was privy to was your meeting of the planning board back on June 17th, 2021, when the site plan was approved. It was voted on. In bottom line, I guess what I'm trying to find out is after this June 17th, 2021, when the planning board approved it, is that when the drainage ditches, the two drainage places in front of the building, if that was done afterwards?
No, I don't believe that to be the case, but I honestly couldn't say. What I can tell you is that this design, based on a comment from the town's review engineer, this design as revised and as he has no further comments to it, doesn't include those catch basins as part of the
Catch
system.
basins. That's what I was.
So this proposal is a brand new proposal with.
To bring everything to current.
Exactly.
Yep.
To solve, I mean, there was complaints about the drainage. We're trying to solve the drainage. It sounds like from that letter, the Conservation Commission's own engineer has confirmed that there is going to be less water runoff to the street if we install this.
Right.
So we're trying to solve the problem, and he had no further comments.
Yeah. I would think from remembering what you were talking about, and then where we are now is, if this is the newest plan to be brought up and our own town's engineer is saying this is going to solve all water problems, then I don't mean to say who cares what was done in 2021, because it does. It should have been following the letter of the law. But
Right.
if this is going to be the new and improved plan and our engineer says this is going to solve everything, then
Right.
in my head I'm kind of checking that
Because
previous
for whatever
box off
reason,
and going to this.
in 2021, it was one of the board members who had recused himself because he's a butter, suggested that there be a stormwater review and a site plan review, and it was voted not to. You know, which I'm wondering if it was before the catch basins were installed, if it was done at that time during the meeting, like you said, it maybe could have solved this whole problem.
Right.
But
It might have changed with the addition, but still it would have been better than not.
And also, even if it could have been done better, that cost was assumed by the owners, and so now
Right.
they're basically being forced to redo it to solve that problem. So at the end of the day, I mean, if that's something that the owner of the property is willing to do, then that's on them. That's not, as far as I'm
Right.
concerned.
Well, depending on the catch basins flow and direction or whatnot, there's quite the requirements from, I understand, in conservation as far as depth and all kinds of qualifications that.
But if they move
conditions,
forward
yeah.
with this, doesn't everything then have to be inspected upon completion?
Right.
Correct.
Yeah, so-
We would not have, be able to just install it and walk away.
So to clean this up, I don't, and I'm probably missing something, but if this is what the engineer has approved moving forward, what does it matter before this?
Well, only because there was a set of criterias that was requested by the planning board back in 2021 that they would meet, and they
Right.
haven't. You know, as far as landscaping, we'll take care of that. As far as the water runoff, I think 4 hay bales at the time did not solve the
Right,
problem.
right.
And,
So
you know,
what's
the omission
the,
of any kind of stormwater management or site plan review wasn't necessary evidently at the time.
so if we move, let's say all things, and this is a hypothetical question for everybody, really. If we decided to move forward with this, what would the protocol be in order to make sure that the requests and requirements that we're asking of this plan are met to 100%?
They have to be right. I couldn't agree
But
with
to
you
your
more.
point, if that was the case before and they
Right.
weren't, so now bringing in the
Right.
past, I understand. So I guess the bigger question, and I don't think it's open for interpretation, it's just what is the process to make sure that if we approve this,
Review engineer.
the review engineer, okay.
Yeah.
So somebody dropped the ball in 2021, maybe. But if this is the new one,
Well, the applicant made promises is the word that was used, you know, that they would, if there's a problem, we'll take care of it. And
Yeah.
that was enough for the board at the time, and
Yeah.
obviously that never happened. you know.
Yeah, I can just say I was not involved in that application in 2021, but I've seen the plan that was approved, that's signed from 2021, and it doesn't have anything on it as it doesn't have anything like this on it
Right.
at all.
Nothing like that. It was just their word that they'd take care of it if something
And the-
happened.
And the decision that was issued doesn't have anything in it either, so I don't know. I
which is
only know what I
one of the
reviewed.
major reasons over at least the 3 years I've been here that we stick to a new unwavering process so that everybody has the same stipulations and the same regulations so that it isn't like he like patted me on the back and winked and said I'll take care of it.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, well, no offense, but
Or
that's
like
not how it works.
accusations of people are working for somebody. you
Yeah,
know, end of
and
the
it's
day.
not anybody's, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you know that if there's
How long-
rules and guidelines, then they're going to hold themselves to
Yeah.
it. And if there aren't in writing, then it goes, then make me. So this new one, since you've been involved and now that we're here, it seems to be much more in line with the actual due process.
Amy, how long paper letter is that? Is it something that should be read into the,
I will read it into
yeah,
record
if
if
you
you would
wouldn't
like.
mind? That
All
would be
3
great.
pages? All right.
It's-
Hunker down, folks.
No,
Here we
I think
go.
it's important that it's in the record, it's on the record.
Can I ask, has this been approved by conservation yet?
No, we're before them next Tuesday.
Okay.
They told me at the last meeting that I needed to make sure that you all were okay with the plan before they would put, I'm in a little bit of a catch-22. So they won't do anything until you guys say that you don't have any further comments.
Mm.
We need to have some conversation with conservation.
Yeah, we call this the
100%.
hamster wheel of death.
Yeah, yeah.
100%.
That's actually the catchphrase I came up with 2 years ago for this
We
project.
established a protocol that we
Yeah.
can all live with.
Yeah.
They did put me on the agenda,
Mm.
and I told them I was meeting with you.
But what we don't want to have happen is everybody doing this.
Right, that's
Because
what I
then
Well-
the person gets stuck in the middle.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, again, I mean, if conservation is okay with their part, and then they came to the planning board and we made sure that the lighting was okay, the landscaping was okay, conservation's okay, Board of Health's okay, and all the other boards are okay, then we can okay the final plan. But for them to say, you approve the plan and then we'll approve this, when this might not be approved and then it has to wing back to us, that makes 0 sense. So.
I do think it's under a certain part of it though is everybody's almost too polite. We're like, well, we're good with it, but don't go to the planning board and make sure they're good with it. And
Yeah.
then you come to the planning board and we're like, is conservation okay with it? And then, okay, well, if they're okay with it, so it's almost like we're being too polite, where it should be like here, final.
That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
We need to establish a protocol here
Right.
that all the boards are in line with, so.
And for my own particular vote, something that, with this particular application where there's been that many problems with it, for my vote, I would not be comfortable approving a plan like this contingent upon conservation, contingent upon Board of Health. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
This
always
is,
think-
I don't disagree.
this is involved.
I think the site plan encompasses all of the other boards, and therefore the site plan should be the last thing checked off.
Before you read that, can I play devil's advocate? Because I'm just curious.
Sure.
It's not that I don't agree with you. We say we're not willing to approve with the condition or contingent upon the conservation. And then they go to conservation and conservation goes, everything looks good, but we're not willing to approve without we're not gonna vote to approve with the condition of the planning board approving. And now here we are again. So why, if everything looked good, why wouldn't we feel comfortable saying, on our end, we're good upon the approval of the conservation, so that on Tuesday when she goes in, she goes, it's not approved. They're saying they look good as long as you feel it's good, because we haven't had that talk yet about who goes first, right? And what's on second,
Yeah.
right? So
And I don't know who's on it.
that would be right. I don't know.
They told me I can't even have a hearing to get the permit until, they've told me that I can't have the actual hearing
Yeah.
with the notices to go to the abutters scheduled, until.
What I'm trying to get at is when any business, whether they're local or coming in, or any resident, local or coming into the town, it seems like when they come in front of these boards, it almost makes us look unorganized. It almost makes us look like we don't know what we're doing or we're winging it, when it's like, we're here, we're doing this, we know what we're asked to do. We've got something from our engineer saying, this is the best plan you guys have ever seen with this, and conservation is saying, we'll put you on our thing, but you gotta go to the planning board first. That's what they did, and now we're going, well, I wouldn't feel comfortable with that until they approve it, and it's just gonna keep ping-ponging back and forth, and I just don't understand where the disconnect is to be able to put a contingency in there if we feel confident in this project.
I think the planning board takes a look at the overview of the whole thing and decides if it works or not, based on what's presented. And to your point, or at least I think the point you're trying to make is, I'm not all that uncomfortable personally, having been on both sides of this, to approve subject to, because it's gotta start someplace.
Right. Right.
And anything that they do that changes from any of this, they have to come back for a revision anyway.
If what she's about to read into record is that our own engineer that works for the town says this is awesome, then why are we kicking it back to conservation that's already kicked it over to us to see what we think?
And then
Why
we're
wouldn't
kicking
we
it
just
back.
put our foot down and make a stance here to say, we did our due diligence and this is what we say?
Well, this is conservation due diligence.
Mm-hmm.
So so like everybody has a piece of the puzzle. Like the plan is the whole, right? But then you have conservation's piece,
Yeah.
and then you have Board of Health's piece, and
Yep.
it all makes the whole. So you fill up all the different boards that are in the town, and it fills up the whole plan. So conservation concentrates on conservation, and then they send it in to us, and they say, we've done this. We had our hearing, everything's good. There you go.
Right.
And then it makes the whole plan. It's almost like having all the pieces of the puzzle.
Yep.
And then the site plan encompasses all the pieces of the puzzle. So when they're all done, and every other piece, Board of Health, the whole nine, I don't need to go through them all.
Yeah, no, I get you.
They
Yeah.
go through it all, highway, and everybody sends in their comments, because it goes right back to the site plan application where they're supposed to send in the plans with all of the different pieces, and then there's 30 days for all other boards to give comments. And then that's where we can figure out whether Steve's okay, whether the police are okay, whether the assessors have everything written, everybody gets, and it sends the information into the planning board. And then where the whole, that's like putting where the last piece of the puzzle, making sure that everything is all checked off.
Got it. So where the problem lies is when everybody that's holding their piece of puzzle goes, I'm not giving you my piece until you give your piece.
But see, that's the opposite way it should go.
I didn't ask how it's supposed to go.
Right.
This is how
I'm
it's
talking about
going.
how it's going.
But this is when we say to
That's
them.
what I'm saying.
So then we should be firm and say, we're the final sign off on everything.
Okay.
And
So
then because-
so we're gonna go after reading this in a record because to my understanding is that with this site plan, one of the major things that's getting in the way of approval is this water drainage report
Yeah.
and all the water runoff and all storm drainage and all that stuff, right?
Right.
The engineer, although for conservation, is saying this new plan satisfies that. Okay. This has been peer reviewed.
Yes,
This is
that's
right
the
now.
peer review.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which we usually say, we're not gonna even look at something unless we peer review it. So this has been peer reviewed. Our engineer has said that the water's all taken care of. Conservation saying, we're not gonna hear you until the planning board does it. So it's ass backwards. And then we're waiting on everybody to give us their pieces, but nobody wants to give us their
Right,
piece.
so if like what Ann just got through saying, was if they won't even give her an appointment at conservation until the planning board signs off, how are we gonna get all the other boards to sign off and then have it brought to the planning
Right,
board?
which is-
When they're not even gonna be able to to sit in front of them and explain it to them.
It's not unreasonable for us to approve it subject to confirmation from conservation.
That's where this all started. And I wasn't trying to harp on what you said, because I understand it's very involved, right? But I feel like if we did vote, if assuming that it's all at face value, but if we didn't, like, let's say we liked it, but the only thing holding up was the final approval of conservation, well, we should vote that way and say we approve this so that they can move forward, so that they can
Yeah.
get all the other pieces of the
That,
puzzle.
right, it really makes
I
sense.
actually
That's
disagree.
where we're at.
And then the other kicker
I
too
disagree.
is the same thing with, I'm sorry to keep going back to you, Ann, but Ann comes out today and says, no, one of the drainages is completely declined by the MBTA. So if it's on our plan that it's gonna, that half of it's gonna drain through, over across the street onto the MBTA
Yeah, right.
catch basin, that throws a monkey wrench in everything.
But that was from September 11th, not from October 7th. So this plan has nothing to do with September 11th from Steve Hayward. This plan is from our own approved by our own engineer based off the new stuff, is what I'm saying.
Right, so there was some, the Conservation Commission, the town's review engineer identified some issues with the previous plan, and our guy corrected them. And one of those issues that was identified by the town's review engineer was an error in the elevations that were on the plan that made it look like the water was going towards the street. And so it seems like the town's highway person picked up on that and was pointing out that it shouldn't go to the street. Well, that was an error. That has been corrected. And from the letter from the town's review engineer on the 8th, he notes that that has been corrected.
Right.
It was the spot elevations around the catch basin were not like fully delineated. So if you looked at it, it looked like it might be going that way, but it is not, and it is
Right.
corrected, and he noted that in his comment.
So to, not to overspeak during this meeting, but I'm just really having a hard time after all this time, and I know some of you have been on these boards much longer than I have, but if we don't put our foot down to change something, like if nothing changes, nothing changes. So although moving forward, we should be having a conversation about getting all the pieces and where the final stop, where this sits right now, we're doing this. So if we at least do our due diligence, I would feel comfortable going, we took care of our end,
No, we don't.
but we have to be contingent upon everybody else.
I'm on board with you at this point. I think we should also consider at a future date to maybe even have a joint meeting with the conservation and iron this out. And let's get a protocol here,
Something.
something.
If I could just throw out something that has nothing to do with my client's project. Years ago in my town, we had to do a flow chart. A guy came and he did like this flow chart and he said, if somebody's making this application, first they go to A and then they go to B and then they go to C.
Right.
And all the boards signed off on following that flow. It's just a thought.
I go,
Well, it kind of already,
I'm gonna put you on the spot.
it kind of already is, like, because our site plan application, as you have seen, because you probably helped Liddell fill it out, correct? So if you're sending the information all into the planning board and all the other boxes need to check off, the only thing we're missing from that exact site plan application, well, no, we're actually not. We could be a little bit more concise, but it states that everybody needs to give the planning board within 30 days all their comments and review. So that would assume that everybody would be here, because right now, I believe that we need to get notification from highway to say, we've looked at this new plan and we're okay. And that would happen, and then conservation would do it, and then Board of Health would say we have no issues, and then so on and so forth down the line, so that we can have all of the documents come here. And then they're in the planning board file, and that's how we make sure that all of the boards have gone through. If we let it go with contingencies, how are we to know that everything's gonna be set up correctly?
Because the conservation would have to do their due diligence on their part, knowing that we've done our part, and that they have to make sure that they check all their boxes
But you
in
s-
order to approve.
And again, back to the same thing, how do they get an appointment with conservation without us coming from the
that's why
planning
we need
board?
to establish a protocol.
Exactly.
But in the meantime, we're
Yeah.
in this thing.
So-
I think we write them a letter and say, from the planning board, we need you to do your due diligence so that we can sign off on the total plan, and just point them in that direction currently by saying, the whole plan needs to be done, so please,
I don't
conservation.
have a problem with that for future stuff. I think right now we're stuck in a rut here.
But this is how we get rid of this now, is we send a letter to conservation that says, we need you to sign off, and we need all of the other boards to send in all of their documents so that we have it in, and it's one place.
And Concom says, no, we want you to do it.
You
Yeah.
say that's not the process, because the site plan has everything come into the planning board. It's not about control, it's about the fact
I
that there's a
understand.
puzzle that needs to be done, so,
I'm just talking about where we are right now.
So also, if the engineer,
it
Has
makes
said-
zero sense, because it's still this way.
but if the engineer is writing a letter, wouldn't the highway department lean on the engineer? Because what is Steve Hayward's a saint, like a staple in this town, right? So I'm not saying anything negative about him. But if an engineer who does engineering says this is how all the arrows and all the numbers line up,
That's
what
where you
is a highway surveyor gonna do other than go and walk around and
And
go?
again, and the same thing with a previous application, when there was, say, quote unquote, what was determined or not determined to be a substantial change, that it would have to come back as a substantial change.
But it's
If in
back.
fact, we approved this it's not what we approved, they changed it, whatever it was,
It's
To-
just backwards that way.
To your point, Amy,
Yeah, it's just.
everybody should be checking the boxes and coming back to us.
Right.
Unfortunately, they're going, we're not gonna do anything until planning board gives a thumbs up.
Because we need to tell them, we need to say, no, you need to do this to finish the whole. And so by letting them continue to do it, we're just continuing
get it.
down the road like this. I think that we say, and I will make a motion, let's make, I'll make a motion to send a letter to conservation to go through with their approvals so that we can look at the plan as a whole and not have reapplications for modifications for the whole entire plan if they change something. And we still haven't gotten all the pieces of the puzzle. This is before the new plan, so Hayward needs to, I don't mean to put it to him, but the highway department needs to send in to us. Board of Health needs to send in to us. The
So can we
building-
make a motion, if you're gonna make that motion, then it can't just be to conservation.
Okay, all the boards.
It's gotta be,
Okay.
we will move forward, and you should get on anything that you need to get on in order to get us that puzzle piece.
Yeah.
So, it's probably not the result you were hoping for tonight, but if we can make some progress of like, well, they're not just a circus in there, just everybody point, every clown pointing at the other clown, then maybe we can, by the way, I'm one of the clowns, so I want to be very clear, I'm not calling anybody else that. But I just think that if we're not comfortable moving forward because we don't have all the pieces, but nobody else wants to give up their piece, then the motion needs to be that we get all the pieces and we have it in writing and we send each one of those board chairs an official letter from us saying we cannot move forward until you approve. So please don't send them back to us.
Okay, I will second that motion.
Oh yeah, that was a motion. I motioned what everything I just said. No, I just think if we're gonna moving forward to figure out the pecking order or the due process, the motion should be that we need to send a letter to every chair of every department that is required in order for us to make an educated decision to move forward and ask them to please make a decision to give us all the information we need to make a decision.
All right, the only kicker, the only problem I have with that is that issue that you're talking about in the motions and whatnot really has nothing to do with the application in front of us.
It does.
The application in front of us is whether we approve it or not, or review it or not, or find problems with it. The topic itself about the pecking order and
It's something we do separate.
it is something, yes, it's done separate than an application that's in front of us.
Can it be done at the same time is the question.
Right
Can
now.
we approve this with the contingency of the other boards and then say, moving forward, we're not doing anything until you guys approve everything?
I myself, I would think no. I think it's a separate issue. It's protocol, it's procedure. It's nothing to do with the application in front of us. I think that's a good idea, what you just said. If we can review this and as far as the planning board goes and our duties and what we're responsible for, we review it, we can approve it or not approve it, depending on the votes, and as to what's in front of us. And then I think I would have no problem at all after the application.
That's what I mean.
To
I'm
go
saying,
to go to
when I say
procedure
at the
and
same
protocol.
time, I don't mean in the
I
same
like the flow
conversation.
chart idea, to be honest with you. I do.
Bert, I'm not, by the way, let me clarify. I'm not saying at the same time in the same vote. I'm saying in the same time, like tonight. Like,
Oh.
we vote on
Yes.
this,
Right.
approving that we've done our stuff, because usually most people come
But we
in
haven't.
with, no, when we do. We have to, right? Because he's not making a motion to approve or deny. You haven't even, I cut you off before you had a chance to read the thing in. Because I'm trying to get something tangible here. But once this is done tonight, the next order of business needs to be
Yes. I agree.
chairman is writing a letter to the other chairman and getting the
Or-
flow
or Pick
chart.
somebody to go to the individual board at a meeting and present the case. I think that's more,
Yeah. I'm looking at you because you like to do that stuff.
Well, I think that we have a planning board meeting right here, and we can all write the letter and send it to them, that it's pretty simple. The site plan application checks everything off going here and says every board report to the planning board within 30 days. It already states that the planning board is to collect all the information.
if we get it.
When I was vice chair and I was running and going around, I made sure that everything went around to every single board, and within 30 days, we had all of the documents
How
in
do you
hand.
make them do that?
You
is what
send
I'm
it out
getting
and you
at.
say, within
I can
30
send out
days,
any kind of thing, but you can't make them do it.
So
you
It has to be
send in
agreed
30
on.
days.
I think it has
Hold
to
on.
be
You
proposed and
send
then
it
go to
in,
the
you-
selectmen
If they
and have them
don't send anything to
set
you,
for-
What do?
then they don't have any comments.
Okay, well, they didn't send anything to
They
us,
have
so they
30
didn't have any
days.
comments.
Well, we have this, does he know there's a new plan?
Yeah,
Did they actually get the plans and all the other departments?
Yes.
So if they don't
Did
send
they?
it, and
They can.
we approve, basically bottom line, what do we know about conservation, stormwater engineering and whatnot?
That's
We
not-
depend,
We have a
we
motion
depend
the
on, we
floor.
do depend on them.
We have a motion on the floor unless you want to.
I'd like to retract it because I think it was set out of turn.
I agree.
I think what we ought to do is if we could, I'm gonna,
It was in the wrong
I'm
order.
gonna make a motion, we approve this plan, subject to confirmation from conservation. After that, we make a motion to do what we just talked about doing with the other.
That would be a
boards.
separate matter.
separately. I don't want to do it first because then that throws this into that.
All right, well, let's first, before I accept the motion, and and a second to vote on it.
We have to read
Let's
that.
go, yeah, let's go through what, if you wouldn't mind reading that into the record.
This is exactly my point. The vice chair just made a motion without even reading the stormwater permit out loud that we were gonna do. Like, I think that the information needs to be given to us. I don't know why we're deferring our job as elected officials for the town. That site plan review is specific and states exactly what's supposed to happen. We could put a line here that says planning board is the last to sign off and clear up everything possible. That's the only thing that I believe needs to be added to that application. But it's really a given where the planning board's supposed to receive all the information to give the full plan. I mean, it's really that simple. You can't have a plan with one part over here and not over here and not over here and
I don't
contingent
disagree
here.
with anything you're saying, but none of that's in place.
But it is in place.
But nobody's complying with it.
That's because there's a lot of things going on that aren't going right. And all we need to do is state, hey, conservation,
I don't have a
do your
problem with
job
that
and
going
send it
forward.
in to us. And hey, Steve, are you done? It's called communication. That's exactly what needs to happen, and it's very easy, and that is our job.
But in the meantime, everything's stuck in the mud.
Because
Correct.
all
Because
we
if they
need to
can't get
do.
it, if they can't get a hearing,
All
get an
right.
appointment until it's in.
Let's read this in.
How are we supposed to be able to evaluate an engineer's findings or yes, no, good? I don't think that is part of the planning board's.
We're not asking for it to be part of the planning board's job. That
Well,
has
you're
zero to-
asking for us to approve it.
No, I'm not asking
Yes, you
for
said it has to come in
conservation.
before we sign anything off. It has to come to the planning board, and that's.
The approvals from
That's not our.
The approvals from
position.
each board. The approvals from each board need to come in before we
Okay,
sign
could you
off.
please read that into the record?
I absolutely can.
Thank you very much.
PGB Engineering sent to the Halifax Conservation on the subject 285 Home Street stormwater permit. Dear Conservation Commissioners, this is to advise that we have reviewed the following documents in support of the proposed work to correct drainage issues at 285 Home Street. Site plan review and stormwater management permits plan, 7 sheets, revised September 25th, 2024, prepared by Fuss and O'Neill. Stormwater Management Report, revised September 25th, prepared by Fuss and O'Neill. Response to comments letter dated October 7th, 2024, prepared by Fuss and O'Neill. The documents have been prepared to address comments contained in our September 10th, 2024 letter to the Commission. Below are the comments from our September 10th letter in plain text, followed by the current status of each in bold text. 1. The proposed catch basin is shown to be piped into one of the existing leaching catch basins and then piped from the leaching catch basin into the infiltration basin. Catch basin to catch basin configurations should not be allowed as the flow through the second catch basin allows sediment to become resuspended and carried to the infiltration basin. Bold, addressed. The discharge pipe from the proposed catch basin is now shown to discharge directly into the infiltration basin. Parentheses, sediment forebay, end parentheses. 2. We also note that the existing leaching basins are shown to be piped directly into the infiltration basin with no treatment. Additional treatment should be provided, including at a minimum, a hood in each leaching catch basin and then discharged to either an oil/grit separator or a sediment forebay prior to the infiltration basin. Otherwise, the infiltration basin will routinely become clogged with sediment and fail to function as designed. Bold. This was addressed. Gas trap hoods are specified to be installed on all outlet pipes, and all of the pipes now discharged to a sediment forebay for additional pre-treatment. 3. Based on the topography shown on the plan, it appears that much of post-development subcatchment area 5S will flow into Home Street and not infiltration basin 1. as modeled. Also, the emergency spillway discharge from infiltration basin 2 would flow into Home Street and not infiltration basin 1, as modeled. The model should be revised to more accurately reflect flow direction. Bold, this is addressed. Spot elevations have been added to the plan showing that there is a physical berm across the driveway openings, which will direct overflow from infiltration basin 2 and runoff from in front of the building into the proposed catch basin. 4. The storage volume in the dry well for the roof runoff is not modeled correctly. The model does not take into account that only the void space in the crushed stone around the concrete dry well is available for storage. Bold, addressed. The void space has now been accounted for, and the revised calculations indicate that proposed rates and volumes of runoff toward Home Street will be less than existing. 5. In addition to the site being within the Monpont Pond watershed, according to Mass GIS, it is also located within the Silver Lake watershed, which is an outstanding resource water. Bold, informational, no response required. 6. The applicant is seeking a waiver from the requirement to provide a stormwater system operation and maintenance O&M plan. We recommend that an O&M plan be provided to ensure that there will be adequate maintenance of the stormwater best management practices, BMPs, proposed on site. Bold, addressed. The O&M plan that has been submitted outlines the appropriate inspection and maintenance frequencies for the stormwater system components. The proposed stormwater system will result in less runoff into Home Street than what was flowing to Home Street prior to the building addition and the clearing of the rail lot. Pre versus post-development rates and volumes of runoff are summarized on the attached table. Please give us a call should you have any questions. Very truly yours, PGB Engineering, Pat Brennan. And then there is a runoff summary. So first, I'd like to say that that is awesome because it's conservation engineering, peer engineering, but does the planning board want to do a peer engineer on any of the landscaping, lighting, or any of the other things that are on site plan?
Yeah, why don't we
review?
go through some of them, because we had asked different questions about that
Yeah, and last time you had mentioned something about the giant arborvitaes and all that. So let's start checking some boxes.
Okay, so with respect to the rest of the site, taking the stormwater management system off the table. So the comment came back about vegetative screening. I reached out to the abutter, Mr. Mary, to see if I could go on his property to see where to put the, usually it's easier to look from the person's property to see where to screen on our property, but he did not want to do that. So what I did was I went out to the applicant's property and looked from the applicant's property towards his property to identify locations to plant arborvitae. And I included some photographs that were taken. It looks like you can see part of his house is visible through the trees. So shortly in front of where his house is visible, we started a row of Thuga green giant arborvitae. They're shown on the plan. They're being planted 8 to 10 feet on center. I misspoke last time. They grow 3 feet a year, but they will grow to 40 feet tall. And they're one of the most rapid growing, good plants.
because Mr. Murray did, or actually his son-in-law, did present pictures showing his house lit up. It wasn't something like a little bit of light on the driveway or something.
Right.
So.
Right, no, so we've got that. We did not extend those trees all the way along the property line because I was trying to figure out where to put them to screen for the residential uses. And I was looking at Google Maps and I included some of the pictures so that you could see the reason why they do not extend all the way down the property line. There is a building in the back of his property that does not appear to be residential. I mean, from the Google Earth overlay maps, you can see a lot of equipment and stuff like that. So if it didn't look like it was an actual residential space, we didn't put any arborvitae in front of it because, you know, this is a light industrial use. If that's another, you know, commercial use, I didn't see the point of adding additional screening on
And
our
what about the
property.
other house that's closer, it's closer to Home Street?
Yeah.
The smaller house, you know, down below at the bottom of the hill are these gonna be blocking the lights and stuff going in there also?
We don't have any lights
I don't think
over in
there's
that
another one.
area.
Oh, okay.
And then the other thing to say about the lights, we talked about the lights last time. There are lights on the back of the building that have been disconnected. And those lights are not going to be used. They haven't been removed, but they're not capable of being used. It's not like they're turned off, they are actively disconnected. And we would accept any sort of condition you want to impose of a penalty or something if those lights were to be reconnected and turned on. But
How about shielding? Has there been anything in the plan about shielding the lights other than relying solely on the arborvitae?
the only lights that were in the back of the building are the lights that are disconnected.
Okay.
We're not adding
The
any
lights haven't, the problem lights have been disconnected.
Yeah, we're not adding any lights. We're not doing anything to the building itself in order, this is purely for the stormwater management and the change in use from the existing storage use. And I will say, the change in use, to remind you, this is a assembly use. It's in the light manufacturing district. It is assembly of component parts. The component parts come in and then they are assembled with other fittings. It's not, using equipment or machinery.
You're not
It's assembly.
manufacturing, you're assembling.
Correct. There may be some welding, but that's the most industrial aspect.
We spoke the last meeting too, you don't mind if I call you Ann?
No.
At the last meeting about the cars and the boats and the trailers and the trucks that are stored currently way in the back. And you had said that they're only gonna be using within X number of feet of the building. What about the storage of vehicles and stuff like that with gas tanks and diesel fuel and that type of thing?
Storage, we have a potential tenant coming in to this space. That's one of the reasons that I'm here, to get the change in use. So once the tenant leases the space, the tenant will be in control of the property, and the tenant is this light manufacturing business.
So the
So
boats
it's
and the
not-
trucks and the cars will be taken out?
Yeah, it's not a question of continuing to store things.
That's my point.
Yeah, that's not the proposed use. The proposed use is light manufacturing assembly for a tenant that has 1 to 2 employees. And
Because we kind of dropped the ball on that too, like with the storage units up on 106, where people are now storing, it was a storage unit, you buy the garage type thing, and there's boats out there and trailers and, when I say RV trailers and that type, so there won't be any of that once the new
Yeah,
tenant is in there.
yeah, this is to get a site plan review approval for a tenant to conduct a business on the property, which will also, I remember from the last time we were here, there were complaints about, people and trespassing and noise and stuff like that. Once it's rented and there's a tenant that is operating a business, there'll be people there. I think I forget exactly, but I think it's 7 to 5 is the hours that I put in originally. So there'll be at least 1, potentially 2, if it does well, employees at the property during those business hours, so there won't be other people showing up or trash.
Marking their territory,
Good
I
one.
think is what we were, the conversation we had in the past.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is the hours of operations specified anyway, specifically?
It's in my original narrative that we filed with the plans.
Okay.
I think I have everything.
7 to 5, Saturdays and Sundays also, or no?
No, it was business days.
I don't know if this is out of our I don't think jurisdiction is the right word, but I guess I'm just curious. Because there have been a lot of complaints from abutters, and it seems like they're getting addressed, obviously, but the two big ones being the lights, which have been disconnected, not even just turned off, but disconnected, and the storage of the vehicles and other toys. Do we even have the ability to put in there that, like, if
A condition.
like if you cleared it all out to get the approval and then moved it all back in the next day,
Yes.
what is the consequence? And is that something that's in our right to put in as a contingency?
Yes.
Well, their occupancy is gonna be predicated on the or the assembly use, correct, Ann? So technically, they can't do storage if their occupancy,
Technically.
yeah, no, I.
Technically,
exactly.
all the boards are supposed to do.
No, I
So-
understand, but then it becomes an enforcement issue.
Right.
And you,
So that's what I'm asking,
Yeah,
is
yeah.
who's in charge of the enforcement? So let's say
That would be the
we get
zoning
through all
enforcement
this stuff, and let's say they're the abutters, and they come in and
It
they
would be
go-
the zoning enforcement officer who would be
Okay.
in charge of
Yeah.
enforcement,
and then so they would do that.
which would be the building inspector.
So would we put in our motion that we would rely upon the zoning enforcement officer
We can-
upon,
we
for
can-
specifically for lights and storage of unused vehicles and
we
things like that?
could, we could do that, sure.
I think that would make the abutters more comfortable. If at least we can show on the record that their concerns were heard
Put some thought into that.
and that we
Yeah.
are keeping them in mind.
I think that's fair.
And just to say, it is Monday through Friday between 7 AM and 5 PM.
Does that include the deliveries during that time also? There isn't
Yes.
after-hour deliveries or anything?
After-hour deliveries of components and materials are not proposed. So deliveries of the components are coming during that Monday to Friday, 7 to 5.
Thank you.
So on this, in chapter 167-28 in Halifax site plan requirements, there's a few things that I feel as though I want to read out loud to remind board members and maybe teach board members, if they don't know, about what happens. Like, this is something that should be read. It's, no permit shall be granted for any commercial, industrial, business, institutional, apartment, multi-dwelling, municipal or school building or public utility structure, and none of the above classes of structures shall be constructed or externally enlarged, and no use such use shall be expanded or established in an existing building or lot not theretofore used for such purposes except in conformity with a site plan bearing an endorsement of approval by the planning board. Said site plan shall show the owner of record location, zone boundary lines, easements, or other legal restrictions, exact location of buildings on the lot with side, front, and rear dimensions, lot dimensions, topography, adjacent public ways, location of off-street parking, lighting, utility systems, surface drainage, traffic flow, location and nature of open spaces with specific notations as to landscaping, locus plan, and other details deemed necessary by the planning board. The planning board may waive or substantially reduce the site plan submission requirements for projects having limited or minor impacts inconsistent with the purposes of this chapter. A, applicant shall submit an original and 9 copies of their site plan to the town clerk, who shall give the applicant a dated receipt. Within 4 days, the town clerk shall transmit 1 copy each to the planning board, the Board of Health, the building inspector, the highway surveyor, the water commissioners, the zoning administrator, the Board of Appeals, the Conservation Commission, and the Board of Selectmen, and shall transmit written notice of the availability of the site plans to the fire and police departments. Within 30 days of filing such application, the review boards and offices shall evaluate the application and the site plan with regard to the conditions and standards set forth in this chapter and related agency regulations and policies, and shall submit comments to the planning board or take any action thereon. The planning board shall not act without considering the reports of the review boards and the offices unless 30 days from the date of filing have passed without receipt of such reports. The planning board shall note major recommendations of the review boards and offices in its decision and shall explain any major divergence from such recommendations. Failure of the planning board to act within 45 days of the filing of the application shall be deemed approval of the application and site plan. Where a proposed development also falls under subdivision control, the applicant shall include information required for a definitive plan according to the current rules and regulations for the subdivision of land. However, the planning board endorsement under this chapter shall not constitute approval under subdivision control. The board with ultimate jurisdiction in a given case, i.e. the planning board or the zoning board of appeals, which is the designated special permit granting authority for specific specially permitted uses. There's a chart that shows who is in charge of which special permit, shall consider any advisory site plan review report in its decision and shall explain any major divergence from the report's recommendations. Site plan requirements as follows, and I won't get into all of that, but I think I just pretty much stamped out that what that application states about everything coming here is our decision. So we already have this jurisdiction, it is already in hand. What we need to do is now state to the other boards, you need to get us all of your comments because we need to make the decision on a whole. It's not like give this and that. If we were further along in things,
Where's that?
Nobody's arguing that.
Yeah.
so we just need to make it happen now. That's all we need to do. We need to send a letter to all the boards and say, we need comments on this and your decisions within, and this is our
Well,
deadline.
you just read it. They have 30 days to provide it, and if they don't, then we can act without their commentary. You can't force them to do it, Amy. I mean, you can
well-
cajole them to do it.
We shouldn't be allowing right now us to be in control by something else. What we need to, they're in process and they're saying, well, we're waiting for the planning board. That's wrong. It's the wrong flow. So all we need to do is say, conservation needs to finish this. You need to go through your hearings. You need to do this and you need to send in your reports to the planning board. It's written right in our bylaws,
They
which
don't
is
have
what
to,
we,
but yeah, it's written right in the bylaw that they don't have
they're
to do
going
it.
through it.
They
They're
don't-
going through it. The changes just happened on October 7th. So technically, those updated plans should be sent out. And that is a large job why planning board has to do that. That's what our secretary is supposed to be directed to do.
Actually, the town clerk.
Okay, but that can happen. But you know what I'm trying to state. However, right now,
Nobody's arguing what you're trying to put in place. I'm not arguing it. I'm just saying, at this point, we're stuck in the mud here. I don't have, me
we're not
personally.
stuck in the mud.
Well, I think we're stuck in the mud. Let me put it that way.
You're giving up.
So, stay on task, please. I'm
I
asking.
am.
I'm asking everybody to stay on task. The site plan has been sent out for site plan review. Our engineer
For
has a whole
conservation.
list.
Not for us.
He's still our site plan review.
Right, but it doesn't include the things that are all supposed to be in there. Like he didn't comment on anything being wrong or anything on landscaping or anything or lighting or anything like
Is it
that.
normal for a site plan to go out for more than one peer review?
Yes. We did it, we do this. We did it for 266, we did it for 265 Monponce.
yeah, you can-
We
you can
didn't
do
do it
Okay.
for 416, Plymouth Street at all.
So,
And we didn't do it in 2021.
Which is, this is the reason that we started making it an absolute rule that it would occur. This is the exact property that we stated, am I wrong?
no, I remember. So,
My question is, when it specifically says a report from the different boards, is there a distinction between, okay, give us a report of what you need as opposed to an approval or a non-approval?
It isn't definitive.
and I think
That's
that's
what I
the
mean.
problem.
And-
That's
and-
wherein lies the
unless-
problem.
Unless, is the
Everybody's like-
report considered a sign-off?
Right.
Can you say, well, we submitted considerations of A, B, C, and D in a report, but yet we haven't signed off on it as conservation, as Board of Health, or as anyone else?
I think the problem we're running into, not to go back down this road because I would like to move forward, is everybody's got their approval, but not willing to sign off until that happens. So,
Right.
It's right here.
I know. There's a lot of things, even in our own constitution, that don't get done the right way, which is
All
why
right, as
this
far
is
as
such a
the
shit
planning
show.
board goes with this
We're supposed
application.
to
Should
make
be.
sure it
I
happens.
know, I agree.
So that's what we should do.
So what I'm saying is that I I don't see a problem with it, and this is just my opinion. I trust this as well, right? Because
What
for
we
all
paid
these
for.
things, for
Well,
what
what
all
was
these things,
paid for.
addressed,
That's specifically agreed.
6 different major things that were addressed to say our major concern was the water, right? As the planning board to this point on this project, amongst other things, but I get it. I think you are 100% right that the process is not being applied the way it's supposed to. With that said, I personally feel comfortable being able to vote on this with the contingency of the conservation based off of this and everything else that's been done, also knowing that they're going to be able to look at that. And then we can also go, listen, this cannot happen like this. This cannot happen like this. We need to get a pecking order in place. So we're going to, the planning board did our due diligence on this project, and we are approving it upon the contingent that you guys are gonna do your due diligence, but moving forward, this is how this is gonna have to
Right.
work.
We asked, as Amy just read, we asked for a report.
And I
There's
would-
the report, it's in front of you right there, with specific
It's not
items on it that were addressed and which have been addressed and footnoted. To have the actual conservation approval in front of us, no, we do not have
And
that.
Amy, to be honest with you, while you were reading that whole thing, I'm like, I would take those pages out, copy them, and send them to every board and go, this is the pecking order, this is how this is gonna roll
That's all
from
we
now
have to do
on.
right now. That's all we have to do right now. Because conservation hasn't signed off on this. They haven't even had their hearing to have any of the abutters there.
They
So
can't even
then,
make an appointment. They can't even get
That's
a
fine.
hearing.
But that's
I can go,
because-
but I can't
that's
have a
because of
hearing.
this.
Right.
I can
but
go.
that makes no sense, Ann, is what I just read. Like, this needs to go to them and say, have your hearing so that we can send this back.
I don't have a problem with
Then-
what you're proposing down the road. I think it.
Why
this is-
not
this-
now?
Because I think this is far enough along that we don't.
But
need to
also
do it.
because conservation has put
I
their foot down and said that
completely-
you're not willing, they're not willing to
But they're
even
not
give you
following
a hearing.
procedure. They're not following
I
procedure.
completely agree.
Then what, all we need to do is say, no, you're first.
So then would we be putting our foot down to conservation and saying, you will give her a hearing? How's that gonna go?
That's what
No,
they're
it
supposed to
doesn't.
do.
I think we need to have a discussion, an interboard
Yes,
discussion.
yes.
with
Not on an
what's
application
involved.
that's
Oh
in
my
front
God,
of
we
us.
have
And not
laws
with the
right here.
application
Follow
that's in
them.
front
What else did we review with this
This is a law.
application?
We need
I
to
know.
just follow them. It's that easy.
I know, but they're not adhering, somebody is not adhering to
So
the
we need
process.
to, so we as the board need, this is the final say right here. And that's why we need to send this over now and say,
The
get your
final-
job
The
done.
final say also says, Amy, that they don't have to respond. If they don't respond, we can act without them.
So,
So
Well,
if
then-
you want
The fire
to get, if you
department.
want
We
to
don't
get
have
liberal,
any
I mean, let's
Police
get liberal.
department.
So the town would require us to deny this tonight without conservation approval. I don't think Ann wants that.
No,
No.
no, that's
Yeah.
not what it's saying.
That's not
Well,
what
we
it's
don't
saying.
have
It says we
conservation
we don't have
approval.
to take it into consideration is what it's actually saying, if they don't provide us with anything.
So you're just gonna
But that's-
disregard
no,
everything.
That's not what I'm saying.
That is what you're saying.
Well, no, I'm saying that that's what that says.
can I say one
Oh
thing?
my God, that's ridiculous.
Can I just say one thing? The hard part here is just like all the other boards that are all being too polite, we're actually all in agreement, right? However, here's where I have a problem. If I'm I don't mean to point at you. If I'm sitting in her seat, I'm going, you know what, guys? It's not my fault. Y'all are a shit show.
That you guys are dysfunctional.
It's not my fault that you guys can't get your act together. So I have given you everything that you have asked from me. I've paid for peer reviews. I've had an engineer from your engineer that's on your payroll that said, address. I've done everything. Y'all are a circus. That's your problem, not mine. And so now you're gonna hold up my project?
So what is
If
the
I was
planning-
them, I'd be
To
pissed.
get back on track, what is the planning board asking of the applicant as far as the planning board's considerations? The arborvitae,
I have
the
another
lights?
point.
I'm gonna take my
The-
motion off the table and substitute it with another motion.
I have one thing to say first.
Wait.
The abutter is also not here to be absolutely clear that he is okay with everything that's here. For instance, he owns this property up here too. What if he wants more arborvitae's here and we're not doing any of that because he's out of the
Why is-
country?
oh, well,
I'm just saying, as an example.
do we know he's out of the
And
country?
I had a couple of discussions with him after the last meetings. I asked him, to come on his property, I asked him to be able to look, and he did not indicate anything specific. He was in agreement that arborvitae's were okay, if my memory is correct.
Right, and I get that. However, he's not here to say this, that, or anything like that. So what my thing is
Well, he
we
could
should
also
just use our law, send it back to conservation, have the hearing, have everything come back to us, and then we sign off. It's not gonna prevent you from going forward, because you still need their approval. So I think that we should start doing our job tonight.
I get it.
The way it is. And I will make a motion that we need to follow 16728 and do just that, because honestly, projects having limited or minor impacts consistent with the purposes of this chapter are okay
Well,
to waive.
167-8, I myself, that's not the application in front of us. That's a whole different, like you said,
It's not about-
a whole different.
It's not, it's
topic.
site plan requirements.
If I could finish, please.
It's
Could I
site plan.
please finish?
It's
Please,
site plan.
I'm asking.
What does it say on the
Please.
title of that?
I guess I can't finish.
What does it say on the title of that?
I
Does
guess
it say site plan review?
So, Bert, can I ask you a question as a chairman? Is there a way that we can request, because I don't think there's anything else that we have questions on other than the approval of other boards.
That's exactly what we're supposed to
I
get.
understand. I'm saying as far as, so before we pass anything, is there a way for us to, after this meeting, reach out to conservation and say, can you please, we are not going to approve this until you approve it. By way of 167-28, can you please grant Miss Ann a hearing in order to be able to present in front of you so that you can review all this, sign off on it, so that at our next meeting, we can then have our due diligence and we follow the letter of the bylaw. Because our concern, what I think we're trying to prevent here is saying, you've got to let her in. Are we able to just say, we got to fix this. Can you please give her a hearing even though we have not ruled on it? Because we're requesting that so that we can follow the letter of the bylaw and add a copy to it.
We can do that.
Can we do that?
Thank you.
Because otherwise, we're
I'm
going to be
gonna
here
answer
till
Jim.
midnight talking about the same thing from different angles. It's a 6. No, it's a 9. Well, you're just looking at it upside down. So would that work if we ask conservation to grant her a hearing based on the fact that we're ready to move forward but can't without their confirmation?
Amen. I'll second that if it's a motion.
When is their meeting? The 22nd?
The 22nd.
So it's next week.
Yeah, so
But
you
that's
could.
not, that's not a hearing, because.
They'd have to
it hasn't been
advertise
noticed.
When's the hearing?
They told me at the 22nd, if I come and tell them that everything's copacetic here and
It's
have proof
backwards.
of that, then
Right.
his
See what I
schedule.
mean?
I know, I'm trying to solve the problem.
That's, oh wait, you weren't there. I'm sorry, I thought you were the other.
So when would the hearing be after the 22nd?
It's probably
The next meeting?
the meeting or the meeting after that, because they have
They have
to give
to
the abutter
notifications.
notices, and it would go in the newspaper, I believe.
Yeah.
The plan could
Which
change
is
if some other.
beyond,
came
which is
by.
beyond the extension we've granted already.
No, it's November 19th or 20th that we have an extension to.
Yeah, but I'll need to get another extension if it goes beyond
That's,
that. because-
yeah, but we're trying to take care of this now, and that will make it all clear.
If
We have to follow the bylaw, that's our job. It's not our job to just do this. It's our job to
I'm
follow
not
the
gonna ask you to read
bylaw.
the bylaw again, because the bylaw has a hole in it that you're not addressing, but that's another story.
We also can't approve something without making sure that there is only a minor impact. And so we're not doing that. So technically,
What we'd be doing is making it subject to.
I don't know why you're
conservation.
pushing for this so
I'm
bad.
not pushing, I just wanna get
Why-
some
why
stuff
wouldn't
off
we
the
just
table.
start-
Because you're making,
Stuff off the
all of
table.
a sudden, you've decided now's the time to deal with
No,
all
this
this.
is how
Where
it's
you've had,
supposed
what, 8 years on the planning board that you didn't deal with it?
No, not 8,
Okay,
7, 6, whatever it is.
5. In the 6th.
okay, so this is adding to the circus.
And I
So
always
let's-
did
Yeah,
run it
let's-
that
Let's,
way.
let's just end this.
So if we were to not vote on this tonight and ask for conservation to grant Miss Ann a hearing
Under 16728.
based on our bylaws, then that would essentially give me the timeline. So you would go in on the 22nd. They would have already received communication from us requesting, granting you permission.
I'm thinking that what if we sent out this letter tomorrow or Monday to conservation, that she wouldn't even have to go to the next conservation meeting. They can get the hearing right going and have it sooner. She doesn't need to wait to go to Tuesday. They can just send it out. Send out the hearing
I would
notice.
have to go on Tuesday to
Okay.
see what they actually did in response to your letter.
Well, they have to follow 16728. They have to. We really honestly,
167 is zoning.
Yeah. So it's just
Well,
it's just
it's
one of
part
those
of this
things
puzzle.
where all right. So I'm not done with the timeline. So you go on the 22nd, and we've asked them, which is next week, next Tuesday. We've asked them to please grant you permission for a hearing, even though we haven't voted on it, because after reviewing the bylaws, this is all backwards. So then they grant you a hearing. They have to give you 30 day, the abutters 30 days notice. So now you're into the end of November, right? If it's 30 days. They grant that on, let's say, the hearing on November 22nd, but whatever, the extension would be passed, so we would need another extension. Then you would come back to us, which would then be the first meeting in December. Boy,
but it's gonna be that way anyways. It's not gonna be any faster if we let go. We're just letting go of checking all the boxes, which is what our job is.
no,
to
I
be-
understand. I know.
So
I'm-
it's not
I'm
gonna
saying-
do anything different.
But the difference is, so if we voted on this contingent upon the approval of the conservation board, then you have to go on Tuesday, they still have to do all the hearing, but at least then by November 22nd, you can move forward with your project if everybody signed off on it.
Yeah.
So it is faster. And I'm not trying to push it through.
But it's not about being faster.
I
It's
know
about
it's not about
following
being
all the
faster.
rules.
And again, I'm trying to put myself in her shoes. Hold on. I'm trying to put myself in her shoes. Or anybody that sits in the gallery, the audience. If conservation, or any board for that matter, had followed this and did their due diligence for following the bylaws, then we would be able to make a decision tonight. But they didn't. So that should not be at the fault of the person that is the applicant.
But it's not at
Just a
her.
point of clarification, they're not governed by 167, the other boards. Only
We
the
are.
planning board is.
Right, and what does that say? Everybody must do the job to bring to us, not the opposite.
And
I
if they-
agree.
But it doesn't
And
also.
had
doesn't
they-
We
say-
can have,
Had they, we would have been able to do our job, but they didn't. So now what I'm trying to say is it's something that
But we
is to
need
be
to-
fixed in the future. But for this,
but there's still a ton of holes because we don't have anything from them on the new plan that was sent out on October 7th. We're still not doing our exact job. We're still not making sure that everything is done. And that is our ultimate job of sitting.
That's the
And-
report.
and-
I just
and
don't know
on
if
a
this
side
is the
note-
one. I
on
don't
a
know if this
side
is
note-
the hill to die on this. That's what I'm saying.
Let's find
It is,
out where
because
we're
it's
at.
following
When
the
we can
bylaw.
fix it though, when we can fix it
Okay,
after.
so ready?
Without
These people here that are coming up next with the
Yeah,
bylaw
and-
problem
And then if
Go.
it doesn't pass, it
are
doesn't.
It
sitting
doesn't,
here
exactly.
because the bylaws weren't followed.
I get it.
So letting it go
I get it.
is, so,
I understand.
ready?
Dude,
So
I've been here
this,
since
this
the
is
beginning.
18,
Mr.
19
Chairman.
years later, we're figuring out that what wasn't followed in a bylaw
Mm-hmm.
is preventing multiple lots in town and multiple roads in town not
I agree.
able to go to public status. That is why this needs to be followed to the T.
I agree
But
with you.
preventing something from going to public status is a vote of the town meeting.
Okay, well, yes, once again,
We're getting
we're
off
we're
track
off
here.
topic.
So-
We have an application in front of us. Tom made the first motion. Tom, could you repeat your motion?
I'm
And-
gonna,
No,
I'm
he
gonna
was
move
making
that
a move on.
we accept this project, subject to confirmation from the Conservation Commission that they are satisfied with the
You're not working.
plan as presented, and subject to the lighting on the back of the building being permanently disabled, and
It's
the
not easy.
current use will cease upon occupancy with the transfer of the use permit.
Do you want storage on the property mentioned?
No, I'm saying that will
That
cease.
will cover it.
The current use will cease completely.
It's
I'll
failing.
clean that up. Current use will cease completely, subject to the application for the change of use permit. Let's vote on it, see where it goes. If it doesn't fly, it doesn't fly.
Okay.
Let's see where we're going.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
have such a problem with this because it's not their fault.
But but we can't just keep
It's a-
going and
you
not.
can-
It's the
saying
lack
that.
of,
You know?
it is the lack of due diligence done by
Right.
people.
But again,
that are in
that's a
town.
separate
I
issue.
understand
Look
that,
at
but
the
that
other
affects
parts of
my,
it.
that affects
Yep.
my vote, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
Because if,
Look at why it's not happening.
I understand, trust
And,
me.
and that's why, as the people of Halifax are looking to us to actually make sure that this stuff doesn't keep happening.
I understand,
And we can fix it.
No.
that's what I'm saying.
Not
So
if
there's
you
a
let-
motion
not
on
if
the
you let it
floor.
go.
There's a
Not if
motion
you
on
let
the
it
floor.
go,
Do
you
I
can't
have
let
a
it go.
second?
You can't let it go.
Amy, I got your point. Listen, who's been here defending the bylaws since I got in the freaking seat? Okay? I've been the one agreeing with you this whole time for 3 years about this.
Everybody's
Give me a
been.
second to think about the fact that these people did their due diligence, our boards did not, so now I'm trying to make sure that this does not hold up business because we can still do this and fix this at the same time all tonight.
But it's.
So you know what? I'm gonna second the motion. I'm gonna second the motion because I know we're gonna address this next.
That is
Sorry.
gonna be on next.
But that's what we're
yes.
gonna do. So I
I
second
Give
the
him,
motion.
give him the cookie then.
Brandon, I will tell you that that's
Give
what
him
we
the
will
cookie.
do.
That's the
Okay, there's a
wrong-
motion on the
There's a lot of
floor and a second.
contingencies.
I'm gonna ask for a voice vote. Tom?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Brendan?
Yes.
Amy?
No.
And I vote yes. So it passes 3-1.
I agree.
Then you voted no.
I voted in the best interest of what I
Yeah.
think that the people coming into this
Oh,
town
thank you.
deserve, because it's not their fault that we can't get our shit together.
Right.
Excuse my language, I'm probably gonna get written up and fired or whatever, but I'm sick of this. It's ridiculous. We don't have a flow chart, so it's everybody else's fault that sits in this gallery?
I just read
It's
to you what
ridiculous.
the rules are.
But nobody's following it, Amy. So what I'm
You
saying.
don't give.
And like I said, it hasn't been followed for 16 years.
So now we're gonna fix it.
Yes, we are.
So now we're gonna fix it because we chose the wrong time to have this conversation. When somebody who has done their due diligence
The conversation
has
is.
been
We did the
in
same
here.
thing with,
Not the time to have
with,
the conversation.
Thorndike, we did the same thing with everyone else, with the landscaper across the street beside
Well,
Dunkin'
then I would
Donuts.
argue that
It would
no-
go on and on,
I would-
same thing with,
Dunkin' Donuts
with
shouldn't be
Maloney
there.
property down there, it's
That was a peer
it's
review.
ridiculous.
And again, the bylaw
Absolutely
These are the
ridiculous.
bylaws.
says that
keep
if they
getting
don't
fixed.
respond, we
Needs to
can
be
act.
fixed. The process needs to be fixed.
It's written right here, I just read it.
Well, if it was
So
written
you
right in
voted
there, why
against
wasn't it addressed
Voted
back in
against it.
2021 when you passed it?
That's when we learned.
That's when you learned.
That's when I learned.
That's when somebody
That's
said
what
they
we
needed a
learned.
site
That's
plan
what
we are
done, and you
representing
guys
the town,
voted no.
everybody.
Did you do a
comment.
peer review on 416 Plymouth Street
Did you
where
do
you
a peer
were?
review
Stop,
on
stop,
this?
Where you were?
Guys, everybody,
Where
you wanna talk about working
You
on
have
behalf of
pictures
the...
of your car sitting in the
Hey,
truck sitting there every
stop.
single day working.
Oh, you're such a
Nice
detective.
voting.
Listen, guys,
It's not that hard.
hey,
I
you wanna...
know.
Everybody
I'm not
has
hiding
that.
Can
anything.
everybody stop, please? Can the adults come back?
Yeah.
Here's the deal.
I don't know.
Here's the deal. Everybody gets up here and starts talking about on behalf of the town, on behalf of the town. Let's not forget, we represent the town.
That's what we are.
And we need to act accordingly, all of us, because if there was somebody coming from, let's say, the State Department and sat in on this meeting, you're gonna tell me we wouldn't all have a private meeting tomorrow? So get your emotions in check and let's have an adult conversation moving forward for the rest of the night, because that is ridiculous. Let's go, guys.
100%.
Be better, all of us.
Why don't we, before we go on to that second thing, like I told you I would, why don't we
Yes,
address with
please,
these
so they can
ladies
go home.
and
Yeah.
gentlemen, be, so they can go home.
But there is entertainment.
Next time, we're charging money for this show, so we'll raise all the money.
It's
we need.
recorded, I'll put out the.
Yeah, my God.
All right, so we're on to the discussion, other business, no, discussion for Autumn Lane. Mr. Cody? Is it Cody Willen, okay, and Gradell. How can we help you?
Cody's not here today. Waiting up, I just wanted to make sure that everybody's gonna go back and make sure that you have the as-bills. Do the as-bills, it was in the minutes,
I don't know that we asked her to provide them. I was going to check to see if there was any money set aside either for engineering, or I know.
Is there any-
I know, I just was already on.
so what does that mean to,
Well, that means that somebody has to do an assessment up there. Now, if the town were to do an assessment, this is me thinking out loud here, it would probably be an article at town meeting to raise and appropriate some money to do an assessment of the street. Because I think the assessment that is currently, or the last one, is old enough that I don't think it's particularly valid.
It's 2020.
2020, you know, it could be close.
It was, this was December of 2020. So it's really 2021, I guess.
Yeah, more or less, yeah.
So did we find out how much money was in their revolving account?
There is none.
There is zero. So then you're in touch with the developer, correct? He would pay for the assessment of the road.
He would have to, but we can't make him do it, is the point.
Well, we can ask him to.
No, we
will
can-
he,
we
will
can-
he
we
do
can
that?
I want to understand, I'm going to go back, whatever you guys decide is what I'm going to take to him, because he won't show up.
No,
I mean,
So I'll take it to him, and if he doesn't do it, then I don't buy the property, so.
we
But
could,
that's all I want to get to, is I've been 8 months now trying to get through this, and
what we could do, if I may, Mr. Chairman,
Yep.
what we could do is try to get some quotes as to what kind of money is involved in making an assessment by an independent
But I guess
engineer.
my question would be, based on the fact that it was December 2020, do you in fact need one?
it's been 4 years.
I think so.
3.
Has anything changed though? If those lots haven't been able
Well,
to
it
be
was
developed?
probably deteriorating at that time, and I don't
Because
think it done any
that'll
better.
stop, because this is irrelevant.
Yeah,
All we need to do, in my opinion, is that he needs to have a peer engineer go out and assess the road to make sure that that's the way it is.
Well, that's what was done in 20.
Right, so
2020.
because the time of elapse, and then once that comes back, then if the street could be done like that, if he would complete the street, maybe with the money that he is gonna receive from you getting the lot.
But he's not going to get the money from me.
No, I know, but Cody
He's
would
going to have
make.
some in his bank account, because he's not getting it from me.
No, I mean, like, he's gonna
Future.
get it back when you close, is what I mean.
Yep. Or-
So, and then it would be like a headache off
but
of his
it
plate.
does not seem to have been a motivator in the past 20 years, so.
But
No,
maybe
no.
somebody hasn't made a good offer on it.
well, whatever he gets is gonna go into the cost of doing the road, because there's no way.
Right.
Well, that's the
The
thing.
lot's worth, I'm just picking numbers out of the air here, it says it's worth 200K. You know, that's probably an average
Little
number
more than
today. Yeah, well, you know, I'm being a little conservative.
He's trying to help your
He's
future
trying to
tax
give you
bill.
an
He's shooting
example.
under at 200.
An
If
example.
the road work is 250, you know, obviously it's a loser for him. You know, even if he, I mean, I'm looking at it, I'm saying, if he gave you the lot, what would it cost you to finish the road to get it accepted?
That's the number we gotta
Either
figure out.
way, it would be like a
Right.
peer review engineer, and then you find out how much it is, and then you guys could make a plan off of that.
I
Right.
mean, he's.
That's what I would
He's
do.
done a lot has been done, but it was done 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So maybe it's salvage some of it. I didn't drive down the road the last couple of weeks.
So, I
but-
mean,
Yeah, it's been a
is
while.
that the
since I-
decision? I'll take it back if that's the decision, but I just.
Well, there's not
That would
really a
be the
decision,
process,
it's really
right?
just kind of, you know,
Well,
thinking,
no, I
thinking
guess
it
it's
out.
gotta be a decision. You gotta either tell me you'll accept when these are all checked off, or no, you wanna have it
Well,
done again, right? I'm not trying to be hard.
No,
I'm
no,
trying to
I'm
understand.
not trying to be obtuse either. Somebody needs to know what needs to be done so we can get a number on it, so that everybody can move forward. Because you can't move forward, we don't know what to tell you unless somebody does an evaluation. Maybe that's still good.
Who decides that?
That would be whoever did it. And the
So
problem there is,
Merrill would tell you, you'd have to ask Merrill, and they would say, yeah, you can go ahead with it?
or you could find somebody else or to look at it based on what Merrill left.
I mean, this isn't me, this is you guys.
No, I understand. But we're not gonna do it, is because we don't have the money to do it, is what I'm getting at.
So, I'm trying to help, I'm
Okay.
trying to get it to them.
I think it's just
It's not my
maybe
decision.
like go simple with him and state it like this. If you say to the developer or the owner of the lot, whichever way you want to look at it, state something to the effect of, can you please find out what the a peer
Road cost.
engineer would, you know, come out here and use this and say what would be the cost of finishing the road.
So you're asking him to do that?
Yeah, he has to.
You
Otherwise-
no. You are asking him to do that. That's all I need to know. I'll go to him and say, they're saying that you need to have this done again.
Yeah, because we would need an
But
updated
we'd want
one.
it from our peer review engineer, not his.
PGB.
Yeah.
So he would need to pay PGB, which is Pat.
All I'm
What
asking
is his
is,
middle name?
you're saying to me that he needs
No,
to
not
have,
his
it
last
needs to be done again.
It needs to be reviewed.
Because it could have deteriorated in the past 3 years.
So
Especially if there's no top coat on it.
Right,
it needs to be reviewed.
correct.
So I think
Yeah.
that
To get-
for you to walk out of here with a clear vision of what the next steps are, I think is.
Exactly,
I
that's
I
what
don't know,
I'm-
I don't know you're trying to.
I think what we need to do is we need to tell him that he needs to pay for a new peer review of the road, so that that is done by our peer review engineer, Pat Brennan,
Yep,
to give us feedback on what state the road is currently in and what needs to be done moving forward in order for that lot to be released.
What we need to do is get a quote from Pat Brennan to see what he would charge to do that, so.
What does a normal site plan review cost? Well, I guess it's not a site plan review, it's a
No.
project review,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
Yeah,
it's a street.
Specific,
Yeah,
a
finishing
review
the
of the
street.
condition.
But that's not his role.
No.
So we would need to reach out to Pat.
I don't think that we need to be in, I think that like, he could have the builder do a peer review, send it in to us.
okay, let's
Yeah,
say,
then-
but when you say
time out.
peer
Let's say
review-
I don't mean peer
builder's
review.
asked-
What I meant was, what
he's
is the
asked
right,
the
tell me
planning
what
board
the
what
the
needs to be
road,
done.
Yep.
And
The
it's not
final
gonna be
road
resolved.
We want our.
Okay.
That's what I've been
engineer
told.
to look at
Oh.
it.
yeah.
That's
No,
not
I
his.
get that.
Well,
No,
I mean,
I get
let me
that.
rephrase
But he
that.
needs
Let's-
to pay for it.
Time out. Bigger, hey, new player involved here.
Give me a letter, give me something.
Yeah, so the developer or the owner of the lot
Okay.
has told these folks that he has asked the planning board what needs to be done, and we have not explained to him what needs to be done. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna make it real clear about what is expected in order to be able to move forward, so nobody can point at us and say they're waiting on us.
Okay.
I hate that. So at the end of, like, in all aspects of my life, don't wait on me. So at the end of the day, I believe, unless I'm wrong, that we would make an official statement on the record that the developer landowner needs to have a peer review of the road from our engineer by Pat Brennan, and he has to fund it. Like, he has to pay for that review.
Right, he can negotiate it with.
Whatever, that's between them.
Yeah.
That has nothing to do with us. He has to get that done so that we can then look at it, assess it, and discuss if we will
Do
release
we
the lot.
even need to
Once-
look at that? I mean,
Once we have an estimate as to what the road work's gonna be, then it comes down to who's gonna do the road work. So this gets multifaceted here.
So here's the good news. Here's what it is.
well, wouldn't a developer usually do the final
Yeah,
check
I've got the- I've got the whole
So he
picture
could hire
now.
a guy to do it, and then we would have our peer review go
He did
on
try
and
to
look
do
at
that.
the,
Some
with
say-
Steve, with the,
He could do that.
kinda
I'm
like
gonna
when you
clean this
finish
up
a
in a minute.
subdivision with a bond, you'd finish the road, and then Steve Haywood and the peer review engineer would go out. So I mean, like, you can get
Yeah.
all the estimates, do that, and then really Steve Haywood needs to sign off that it would be an approved street, not us.
Yeah, so here's what's
So
gonna
like, we're making another layer, I think, where
gonna-
literally,
I'm gonna clean it up right
All
now.
right,
Here's the
go
deal. You're gonna go to the developer and say you need to pay for a peer review to find out how much it's gonna cost in order for the road to be done. And then that developer that is you're dealing with is going to then make his own decision whether or not it's in his best interest to finish the road versus the cost of what he's gonna get from you. But what we need is we need our engineer to do the peer review to estimate the cost of what needs to be done on that road so that we'll release the lot. And then, but in order for us to release the lot, that road needs to be done. So that developer is going to hear from our engineer, and that engineer is gonna say, hey, if you wanna do this right, it's gonna cost you $150,000 to do in order for it to be done right. And then that developer is gonna go, is that cost efficient for me? And if the answer is no, you don't get the lot.
Well, that-
Otherwise, unless you wanna pay for the road, which I don't think that's the
I
case.
just wanna get to where we're at.
Yes.
So you guys you're going to contact him with a price of what it's gonna cost
No.
for his peer review?
That is something for him to negotiate with Pat Brennan, our engineer. He has to use our engineer to do the review.
And our engineer, if you want to take this down, is
Pat
I think it might be
PGB.
PGB.
P is
I
in
have that
Peter,
information.
G is
I
in
have
golf, B is in Bravo, Engineering LLC, 49 Trapello Road in Marshfield. You have the phone number 781-834-8987. And again, his name is Pat Brennan.
Now,
So,
I contacted him because I was gonna have him do an engineering review of the lot to determine whether I wanna buy the lot because of its slant, it's
It's all graded.
wetlands going through it.
how close you can get to
So,
it.
yeah, so all of that,
So would a letter from the planning board to the developer saying, this is what we're requesting, satisfy what you're trying to get accomplished in order to be able to at least move forward?
And I'll
Could we
come
be
in,
liable
I'll come in and
if
pick it
we're
up.
wrong? Could we be
If we
liable?
do that, that would be great.
Let's do that.
Because then I'll come pick it up,
Now-
I'll make sure that he sees it and,
It feels as though we're making progress. However, I think you know that if Pat Brennan comes out and he does that review and says it's gonna cost you $300,000 to do the road, he's gonna go, well, math being, doing the math thing, it's not gonna be in my best interest,
Right.
sorry guys. But if it comes out and goes, it's actually didn't deteriorate, it's fine, the first 2 coats are all right, we gotta slap another coat on, it's gonna be satisfy my requirements, it's gonna cost you like 75 grand, then that's something between you and the developer to work out. But at least
yeah.
nobody's waiting on us.
It gives you a way to
My feeling
negotiate.
is, if we do this,
Mm-hmm.
I'm walking away.
Well, at least it won't be because the planning board let you
No,
down.
no, 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 no.
Yeah.
I'll be happy to take the letter, I'll
Yeah.
send it, make sure he gets it or whatever, but if we do this, the time involved, I'm walking away.
Right. Yeah.
Because I've already spent 8 months
Yeah.
waiting for this, so.
The time shouldn't be that.
Yeah,
big
it
a
wouldn't
deal.
be that long, because I
Yeah.
mean, like, the guy, he'll
you
probably
kidding
go
me?
out.
No, no, no.
kidding
It
me?
will. It
No, no,
moving
no, no,
forward.
no, no, no,
moving
no, no,
forward.
moving,
Well,
for-
it should
no,
be
I'm not
talking-
saying that.
What's that?
I'm talking about our review guy.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he'll get right out
Yeah.
there.
There's no discounting how frustrating this has been for you.
Yeah,
So-
not
No,
the
no,
8
no,
months.
that's fine.
What
So
we're saying
just
is-
saying, if he comes back and says, well, he's gotta get the price from,
Yeah, an
Right.
estimate.
Yes,
Basically.
an estimate from Brennan.
from Brennan.
Well,
Yeah.
hold on, what'll happen is he'll get what needs to be done
And then-
by Brennan, and then an estimate can be formed from what Pat
agreed.
says, so
Yeah,
that's,
Brennan's not gonna give him
Yeah.
that price.
right, right.
Months.
You
So,
think so? You
Months,
think so?
months. This guy's not gonna, no.
And-
Well,
And not to
put
You
it-
follow,
guys are gonna,
Well,
you guys are gonna have this lot for the next,
well, that's why we're supposed to follow the
and then
bylaws.
in the same breath too, the asphalt plants are gonna be closing, usually the first week of November.
I just don't. I don't
That
know.
stinks.
I
I think
don't
it's like
know
the third.
what else.
Sometimes they.
Yeah.
So the
they-
problem, this
But
problem
it
that
is
we
cool
really don't
already.
want to go back down because you'll be here for another hour and a half. But unfortunately, when this whole development was approved, it wasn't done correctly. To
Brendan, do
That's
you
it.
want
Everyone's-
Danielle to put together?
I would love
Yeah,
that.
Could you
I'm-
Yes.
Just,
don't get me wrong, you guys,
Yeah.
I'm satisfied with what I'm very happy with what you're telling me.
And so, how about we do this? Let's at least. I'm going to make the motion, or not the motion, but the request, because it's not a motion. I'm going to make a request to Danielle, who's our secretary, or administrative assistant, right? To put that letter together, to have ready for you to either pick up, or we'll have one ready for you to pick up, and we'll mail one. That way, that it's
That's
doubling
probably-
down.
Well, you do both, that'll be
Do
great.
both, so that
Yeah.
we've covered our
and
bases
the
here.
letter is going to who?
To the developer.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what's the developer's name.
Don Triano.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Danielle, if you could please have a letter put together to Don Triani, who is the developer and holding that lot
On.
on
7 Auburn Lane.
7 Auburn Lane, saying that we are requesting him to reach out to Pat Brennan, so Pat Brennan can come out and do a review of what needs to be done for the road to be completed. Upon that being complete, it's on him to find the asphalt company or the paving company to come in and complete the work. And then from there, once that road is completed, then we would sign off on releasing the lot to be built on.
The other option is if you wanted to work something out with him in terms of taking possession of the thing. But that's dangerous because you don't know how good those prices are and how
And
long.
the lot itself, I would still have to go ahead and, I would want to get the lot,
You'd have to
I'd
spend
have
some
to do
money.
the engineering on that.
We're
and-
not really supposed to transfer the lots until, at all,
So-
until it's done.
So my other thought,
A bond
to cut,
could
to cut
happen.
out some time, is if we're waiting on somebody who, let's just say it's not out of delinquency, it's just out of, they're just busy. So if you're already gonna be having a conversation with Mr. Brennan about the lot, perhaps you can have a conversation with Mr. Brennan asking him to
Wouldn't that be a
initiate the
conflict of
conversation
interest if he
with
was?
He hasn't returned my call yet,
if-
so I'm gonna talk,
No,
I'm just talking to him. If I can
No, I
reach
mean
him,
to do the
let's
lot,
Just to say, listen,
Yeah.
to
we're trying
do
to get
the
this done in
lot
a timely
engineering
manner.
and
if
the
we're
street
gonna-
engineering
let's
for the
eliminate a
town.
couple moving pieces. Can you please
Just
reach out to
thinking
him
about that,
and say,
like-
we gotta get this done and this is how much it's gonna cost?
I mean,
It
I
might
think
just
we can
knock
do
a
that
week or two
anyway, to be
off.
honest with you. I don't
You know
think
what I
that's
mean?
what he does.
I appreciate all of everything.
He does do it a little bit, because I've
Appreciate
had
your
developers
patience.
in other town use.
We're trying.
I'm just,
We're trying.
just throwing it out there.
Thanks very much. You
Yeah,
guys
yeah.
have been a great help.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Don't
Thank
forget
you.
your jacket.
Thank you. All right. So
Okay.
So,
I would like to say now that that's empty, when I joined this board without knowing what the hell I was doing, but enthusiastic to serve the town. I was newer to the town, but I'm raising my family. I love Halifax. What happens is when we get a lot of very passionate people that care about our town, which is who should be on our board. But when we fight internally like this, and there are people there, their patience goes away.
Yeah.
So that guy just raised his voice at us, and I think part of it was because he just sat there and witnessed all four of us just bite each other's heads off when it could have been handled differently. So I'm just asking that we all appreciate each other's enthusiasm for the town, but I think there's a better way to communicate, because I am proud to serve the town, but I'm embarrassed sometimes when I leave here, and I think everybody else feels that way too, for how we all handle it. And this isn't a lecture, it's more of a plea to say, I appreciate and respect everybody on this board, and I want to continue to be like that. But it reflects poorly on the people sitting in those chairs, I think. Because everybody
I
has a
think that
basis.
what would happen is if we actually were following the bylaws and everything was
Yeah.
the same for everything,
I agree.
then, and know that there's a certain way to
agree.
go, but we can't let go on the bylaws. And the reason is because of people like that, 19 years later, this guy is holding on to a lot. That road now affects all of the people on the
Everybody.
road times any of that happens, and
And
that's
potentially
why,
their retirement.
that's
home,
why those laws
right?
are there.
Yeah, I agree. So can we move on to the next topic of requesting? I don't know if it needs to be a motion, because I'll make it. I'll make a motion if that's the appropriate thing to do, to request that we reach out to each one of the chairs of all the different boards that are in section 16728 and tell them that in order for us to move forward, there is a flow chart, there is a pecking order, that we cannot make our final decision without their decision.
We should also
I'll
produce a
second.
flow chart.
Yes.
Literally, a flow chart,
Yeah.
to show them what we're looking.
And because, you know what? I know a lot of you guys have these bylaws memorized, which is actually commendable and actually very impressive. The fact that you pulled that out of nowhere, knowing what you were looking for and knew exactly where to find it, it's like a Rain Man thing to me. So, which is awesome, right? So, I doubt very highly that everybody has that same knowledge. And I'm not calling out any other boards for not knowing, but I wouldn't know. So I'll call myself out. I wouldn't have known where to find that. So I think a flow chart would clean up what's written in lawyer speak.
Okay, now that was gonna be my point. That would be my point. I was gonna say, is this something that, our letter should be sent to each of these departments? Or is it something that should go to the selectmen and say, where they're given instructions, who are we to tell the planning board, to tell conservation, to tell the board of health, or
It
to
doesn't
tell
go to the
somebody else what to
Conservation is
do?
appointed, but Board of Health is elected, so that gets a little dicey.
What if
That's
we
what I mean.
what
That's
if we
why I think we should-
presented our own flow chart
Right.
Oh, 100%.
based off of the bylaw, not your bylaw, but the bylaw you just
The
read,
bylaw for the town.
16728.
That's
Presented
what we-
our own flow chart with the extensive knowledge of the three of you, because I'm just here for, entertainment, I guess. But the thing is
No,
if
no,
we,
there's a reason.
I don't know about that, but if we have this flow chart and say, this is what we need, and if it has to go up to the selectmen to sign off on it, they're gonna look at it and go, this looks great. Is that what that bylaw
Well,
says? Sign
I
off
think
here.
When I
Well,
say
the
sign off on
selectmen
it,
don't
I mean,
sign
I
off on
can
it.
believe that the selectmen should be the ones going to the chairman of the conservation and saying, the planning board's got this great idea. Here's their flow chart, here's what they think,
Yes. If we provide that, if we ask them to do it, well, we might be waiting for a while. They got big fish to fry right now. But if we go, hey, listen, we found out at our last meeting that this is going to make the entire process for all boards more efficient, so nobody does this. Here's what we're presenting. Can you please go to those heads and
agree.
we'll send them.
And it's not from our
In
last
advance.
meeting, it's from the last 16 years. that
Correct.
we've printed out.
Correct.
It's been the same thing since I was on the zoning board. 100
So I just
That's
think
a good way to do it.
That's
I
all
think-
lack
I
of
think it's the best way.
quality
I think
bylaw.
we should double down, just like having a letter for him to pick up and one that we're sending. I think we should not only send it to the selectmen, but also we should send it out of respect to the chairmans of each of the boards and say, we've asked the selectmen to review this, so when they come to you,
But that's
you
not
are already
the, That's not
prepared.
the process. We're an elected board in charge of the 16728. The
Yeah, but
selectmen
but
don't
they're not-
reside over us.
I know they don't.
And that the bylaws change. The reason hearings come to the planning board is we're supposed to know. So people should read the chapter that we're representing and know it so that they know how to respond to the people
Mm-hmm.
out in the audience.
But we're not getting the response from the other boards, that's the problem.
And so I think-
So then it's
167
leadership.
is 167 is zoning, and planning is part of that
Mm-hmm.
process. The other boards have their own set of bylaws, they're not looking at our 167.
What I'm saying,
Well, right, but
They don't care.
we're supposed to be the ones that say,
I don't
here's
really
this
care.
plan, and we just got this plan, and, you know, the town clerk sends it out, right? And they make sure that everybody gets it, and then they're supposed to within 30 days, so it's a leadership thing. Maybe when the plan goes out, there should be a statement with it, because I know that I used to do that, and I say, within 30 days, I need your comments.
But if you don't get them, that's what the problem is.
So a letter
so-
goes with the plan that states within 30 days, we need you to tell us what you need to do. So conservation would send us back in this case, we're gonna have a hearing on X and X date. So then we would be able to look at that site plan application and say, okay, our site plan application is gone on November 19th, their hearing is November 5th. Are we gonna have a meeting between then and then, or are we gonna need to extend the site plan to the next meeting? And that would all be done, and that's how the process is supposed to go.
yes, and
And
I
it's
think
leadership.
that the good news, 100%. And so what I'm saying is out of a sign of good faith, out of respect, it is we have met a crossroads here where we are getting stuck in the mud. So our proposed solution to that is here's a flow chart of how this has to work, and moving forward, we are not going to be able to move forward without your decisions being final, which will allow us to have all the pieces that we need. Now, we are not going to tell them, we're not going to dictate, we're not going to mandate. We are going to say, this is what we are requesting, and respectfully, that is what we're asking. And we're getting the selectmen involved, not because they have jurisdiction over us, but because they do carry weight in the town. I know, but they do carry weight in the
And
town.
some of the boards are
to
elected,
be
some of them are
able to be
appointed.
able to back us up on that. They don't have to, but I think out of respect and out of providing the
the right
clarity
way to do it.
and providing the actual information to say, we're not asking you to actually do any of the work.
They don't
We're just asking you to
understand-
follow this.
They don't even understand zoning even more, so like, that would be insane. So like,
But we're providing the work.
we have the law, so all we need to do is actually press upon it and say, listen, this site plan application happens for a reason. It's followed with chapter
Yes.
16728.
What I'm saying is making it
We-
easier for the other boards to understand what we need to do our job. And I know it's already in there. I know it's already in there.
I
The problem,
believe it's an education.
I absolutely agree. So let us
We don't
add.
need to make it even more crazy by adding in a
It's a-
layer of
it's a
another
picture.
elected board,
It's a
because
picture
now
board.
you're talking about months and months of time before everybody goes back and forth and does.
Oh, no. I'm
just
not looking for
relate.
approval. I'm not looking for approval. What I'm saying is here's the flow chart. Here's what we need. There's a picture, like a picture book. Here's the picture so you guys can all see it visually. And here's the written that follows up with that, explains that. These are the 2 pages that we need in order for us to do our job. We would kindly like you, which also lines up with 16728. These 2 articles right here is what we are requesting for you guys to provide us so that we can do our job. We don't need approval. We don't need anything.
And
It's
then-
saying in order for us to do what our job is, we need this, please.
And then the other piece of the puzzle
I think
is,
that's the way to approach it.
I think that's the best way
the
to
other
approach
piece of the
it.
puzzle is that we are not supposed to let go of things that could be detrimental to the town like we did tonight.
Understood.
That's like.
I understand.
Because if that goes bad, now we're relying on site plan modification. Remember a couple of
Yep.
years ago when that solar field came in front of us and I happened to go to conservation and they had a totally different plan in front of them? That's why it has to have one head person.
And that's what I want to
Or
fix now.
one person.
And I understand.
So
I
all we
understand
need to do
the
is
earlier.
explain it to the other boards, like this is what is.
And I want to
not
explain it to the other
happening,
boards.
And this is what needs to be happening, and then that's the whole thing with the control of information. Each member of the board should be getting all of the information along the lines the whole entire time, not just one person on a board having the documents in front of them, which is gonna bring, I'm gonna bring this up along with that. I agree, we need to just, but I don't
Can
believe.
we cross
need
that
to
over
get-
though?
I don't.
Can we cross that off?
I just think that all we need to do is communicate to the other boards and say, this is what is expected in bylaw needs to happen, and this is what needs to start happening on every site plan that
Yes.
comes forward, and just lay it out that that's what's gonna happen.
Yes, and because I'm a visual person, I would like to have it presented in the way of a flow chart with a follow-up piece of paper that says what the flow chart is.
Site plans last.
Yep. No,
Site plans.
I'm not creating
Well,
the
no,
flow
we can
chart because
make
I
it
don't.
last. And again, not that
It
I
is
want to beat
last.
a dead horse here, but they're not governed by 167.
Mm-hmm.
We can take whatever 167 and govern ourselves and tell them that our problem is that we are governed
Right.
by a bylaw.
And that should be in the letter.
And that,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
that's what we should be stating. We should
Because
say
to your
this.
point-
How are we gonna work on this?
To that point, yeah.
How are we gonna
Who's
put this
who's going
together?
to
How are
create
we
the
gonna
flow
work on
chart?
this?
I mean, I can play with some of it.
I don't. Yeah. So it's. But again, if at the next meeting we can have some kind of a rough draft of the flow chart and we can
It's in
discuss.
the site plan application already, which is 5 pages. All we need to do is add a letter at the end that says, just to be sure, the site plan is last because of 16728 and have a copy of it there. Add a copy of the site plan law to the site plan application and that'll spell it out.
So can I ask you the last question on this? Are you severely opposed to us creating a flow chart as a visual to back up everything you just said?
Well, yeah, as long as site plans last.
So let's do that.
As long as site plans last.
Because this is what I'm talking about. Of us, we're all on the same page. We're on the same book. We're just kind of reading it upside down from each other. So that's all it is. So I 100% agree with you, and I think that the flow chart and a letter that ties into everything you just said is just an addition that will allow for a cascading message to all the boards, so that everybody has clear understanding.
In
It's
order
to
for the
protect the
planning
town.
board
It
to
is,
properly do their
100%.
job, this is what we require.
Right? Please,
Please help us.
please,
with
please
And we
help
can't-
us.
And we can't just let it go just because of applicants when we are here for the
And now, hopefully,
8,000
with
residents
this,
in this town.
Well, we have
I'm
an
sorry, I didn't
opportunity
step
now
on
to
you.
get this in place so that we can go
Well,
forward.
it already is in place, it just needs to happen.
and this,
And
hopefully, this flow
so-
chart will allow us to have the communication with the other boards, so that this does not happen again.
Well, it should be happening.
And if
And
bottom
so
line,
there's a
if
ball
everything
being
falls
dropped.
into line
Right. And I'm
and the way
trying
it should be according.
pick the ball up.
I think if these are our bylaws that, like you said, affect some boards but don't affect others.
Well, they
I-
affect the other boards.
I'll wait
They
till,
can-
I'll wait
they
till you're
can
done.
adopt- No, they don't. I mean, 167 is a zoning article. I mean, if conservation decides no, they want to dig their heels in, I don't see this happening.
I would like to make a motion that the planning board designs a flow chart with an article behind it explaining the flow chart, and then delineate it out to the different chairpersons of the different boards with communication, all of the
Let's go
boards.
to selectmen's
All
first.
board members.
And
No, it doesn't.
but hold on, including all boards, all members of boards, to explain to them that this is what we need in order for us to do our job, and we are asking for their assistance so that we can become more efficient, with a big fat please at the end.
So I think it should be our site plan application that's current, add a sentence that states that the site plan's last, send a copy of 16728 in its entirety, meaning that section 16728 with all the A's, all the B's, all the F's, all of that. And then, what was the last thing that I wanted to state? I think that was.
And that the site plan is last. Yeah.
Well, I
And
said
so
that.
because I'm a paint by numbers guy, because I pretend to be smarter than I am, I would just like to see the visual of the different boxes with arrows.
I think we need to make it as simple as possible.
Yep.
They're not gonna
Yeah.
read the bylaw.
That's all I'm saying. So
Well,
that's
they
all.
should.
I know there's a lot of things that people should do, but we don't need to have that conversation. So at the end of the day, and I mean that in like a general sense, at the end of the day, I think that flow chart with everything you just said, because that flow chart is saying this picture book is nothing more than these bylaws built out of
This
boxes.
is
So
what we
these go together, and we're asking for your assistance because we need to become more efficient, please. That's what that was. I don't think it's a motion, it's more of a request. So that's what I would like, please. And if there's any way that I can help, but you guys have a hell of a lot more experience and knowledge of the stuff that's in that book, and I know that's my fault, but I would defer to you guys for your expertise on this flow chart, and I think that we can certainly discuss it and sign off on it next time and then send it out.
Okay, and then on that, I would say that a lot of the problem that we have issue is because you remember how last time we voted 5-0 to have Delia Way on the agenda tonight? It didn't happen. And I emailed to get it on the agenda per the vote of the planning board, and it wasn't allowed on by the chair. And that is disregarding the rest of the board and a vote of the entire board.
Okay.
And that's wrong.
Okay.
I don't really believe that, like, so remember when I was acting chair, because I was vice chair, acting chair, I would send out on Monday a proposed agenda and ask anybody if they had anything to add or subtract. This is not kingdom. This is not tyranny. You're not the only one who receives messages or calls from residents in the town. You have your sphere of influence. I have mine. Tom has his. Maybe it overlaps. Nobody's doing anything incorrectly. People in the town reach out to who they're comfortable with to ask a question to or say whatever it is.
Okay.
When
Are
we
you-
report in to the town, you shouldn't just deny people. That's not okay.
Okay.
There is a certain thing that a chair does. A chair puts together the agenda with the minds of all the other elected officials on the board. It is absolutely abhorrent when you disregard a 5-0 vote to put Delia Way on the planning board agenda.
Okay, are you done?
Yeah.
Okay, now, because I did not interrupt you. I did not. Fair to say, I did not. Please don't interrupt me. First of all, number one, it was asked specifically who the person was and what is the circumstance that is to go in front of the board to be discussed. A refusal of who it was. There was no information. There were no details as to what was going to be discussed. None. That is our procedure. If we have an anonymous complaint come into a, it's disregarded because it's an anonymous complaint. So as far as I was concerned, what we voted on 5-0 was, could we have a specific street or an item brought in front of the board? My answer would be yes, but you have to follow the correct procedures. As a matter of fact, I called on Tuesday morning before the agenda closed. I called Ms. Troop to see what are the details, what's going on. If specifically on Delia Way, that is a non-accepted street. All those people that live on that street own the street. It's private property. If we don't advertise it correctly, if we don't present the details, we are violating the open meeting laws. That was my consideration. Oh, that we could. I'm not saying we could. And because we have no details, we have no idea what we are discussing, and like you said, certainly members of the board can do that. I determined, and it, as Ms. Troop just got through saying also, it's the chairman of the board that sets the agenda. There were no details on it. And I thought, once we get I tried, I made an honest attempt to try to get this on the agenda before the Tuesday closing, and I was ignored. In fact, bottom line, the email was sent out after that and I never heard another thing about it. It's, any dealings that we've had with Delia Way, it involves private property. It's a private road. We were told by the selectmen that especially on private situations like that, we need town council there. We could not get town council in a matter of a couple of days to show up at a meeting tonight to discuss Delia Way or with any other private one. My decision, I understand that. But bottom line, we didn't have enough information. We had no idea we still don't know what wanted to be discussed. We're supposed to just sit and wait for Amy to tell us.
Got it.
There are, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's been in the past that there's been several open meeting violations filed against the board by people in town. And bottom line, there was no need to even take that chance. There's a criteria that has to be followed. She sat on the board for God knows how many years. She knows that procedure. It's no surprises. It has to be either email sent in or CC'd to Danielle or something.
No.
But it was, again, let me finish.
So,
But you just got through saying no. Stop. So that was why it's not on for discussion tonight. No, I'm not on any kind of power trip. I'm not out to get anybody or anything. And like was tried to brought up before, like you had said, there's certain respect that has to be shared between the members. And bring it out at a public hearing where you think I work or where I'm employed or whatever, that's got nothing to do with anything. So I think that's a great place to start, right there.
so what do we need to do to have Delia on?
Have somebody come in and propose to take a look at it.
Autumn Lane was on tonight, so that was on a couple of weeks ago as well. And did you have any idea why they were coming in, or did they just ask?
Absolutely.
Okay, right.
They submitted it
Has
then.
Delia Way been on the agenda before? And so one of the residents come on and they asked to discuss what their problem is. and to
Nobody
see-
asked to discuss, Amy. Nobody asked. This is you coming in saying I talked to somebody.
How do you think you can disregard a vote of the board?
So now you want to change the subject. We'll
No,
get back
it's
to
the
the vote
same
of the
thing.
board. Because we voted 5-0.
To put it on.
Once again, I'll try to finish. To bring it on the board for discussion. To do any item before the board, we need details filed, we need a certain procedure to be followed. They weren't followed. We had no idea who was talking about, we have no idea what even the issue was or the case was for Delia. We have no idea who the person was.
Right.
We have no details whatsoever. How do we know it wasn't the same thing that
Because
these
at the
people
meeting last
No,
week-
no, you wouldn't give any
That's not
issues.
true. I said Mike Chapin. I absolutely said it.
I'd venture
I
to go back
absolutely
and...
said it. He's a man who contacted me to have Delia Way on. You cannot
For
disregard.
what? For what?
What do you
For
think?
what? I don't know. You won't tell us.
Take it
What the
down-
process
take it down
is
a
on
notch.
the fact that
exactly.
we didn't follow
Because
the
she
bylaws.
talks, I most certainly did.
We no.
Most certainly did.
No.
Okay, when you sent the email to Cody,
we
what did he
didn't-
tell you? What did he respond to you?
Nothing.
No,
Zero.
because you're not right. You're wrong.
No, I'm not.
As usual.
So,
I'm not wrong as usual. You know what?
Now
People
it's
have
getting-
your number, honey.
Now it's getting
Don't call me
personal.
honey.
It's getting personal. Everybody keep it professional, please. So here's
Autumn Lane was on. Delia, and you know what? Regardless of that, Delia Way was on multiple times because they want to know why they have major road problems because the town didn't follow the bylaws and didn't take a bond on the road. It's the same issue that's on here tonight.
Right,
They've
so
been
they were
on
told
here
that.
again. They asked to be on. They contacted. It is not just you who gets contacted by the town. It is
I never
not
said it
just
was.
Danielle.
And you're certainly
No,
within
it
the
is.
right.
It's in writing.
so
It's in writing. And it's clearly not okay for when the board votes 5-0 that you make a decision
Right.
out.
If you process the procedure and
it wasn't
fill in
if
the
anything.
details like every other
Did you vote
applicant
yes?
and everybody wants to, It's the process.
All right.
It's
We'll
the
let
process
the
that you
people
didn't
hear
follow,
this.
and now it's everybody else's
You
fault
didn't
that you
pay
didn't
attention
follow
to
the
a vote of the
process.
board.
I think you
You
also had
didn't-
legal advice, didn't you?
What's that?
Didn't you get legal counsel?
That's beside the point.
You didn't follow the vote of the board.
I most certainly did.
No, you didn't. 5-0 was supposed to be on.
So what do we need to have them on the next agenda?
Contact Danielle, have them either or send an email or come in person like everybody else does,
I
and say what their issue is and what details. How do we research it? How do we even find out
What's specific?
what's going on in Dealey, or do we just have to assume that we?
That's what the discussion is for, isn't it? I thought the
Well,
official
it's a
appointment
discussion
was a discussion.
about what?
Deal UA.
Yeah.
About
alright,
what
alright.
on Dealey Way?
Come on.
So,
You know
all
exactly
right,
what.
at the
You
end of the
didn't
day.
follow the procedure, and it's everybody else's fault but yours. I understand.
It's a 5-0 vote, Bert.
And you didn't follow the right protocol
Oh
and
my
procedure.
God. I brought it up, said it at the meeting, it was on there.
Why didn't you pick up the phone
You
and tell me that?
disregarded a vote.
I called you
You
Tuesday morning.
disregarded a vote.
I did. I called you Tuesday morning.
I didn't know that.
This is
Did you
gonna-
leave me a message?
No, but you sent an email right afterwards.
Do you think I have
right
your
after
number
the call.
logged in my phone?
This is
Do you
gonna-
think I know who it is? Do you know how many phone calls I get?
You know, we're still on the record, so let's just remember
This
that.
is gonna go on forever. Can we change the subject momentarily? In the vein of the planning board trying to do some planning, I was wondering if there was a consensus on the board to maybe reach out to a couple people, for instance, Stop and Shop, to see if they have any plans or if they've had any interest in their building after they vacate. Just trying to see if there's anything going on about, we don't need another black building in town. And I was also thinking about maybe trying to reach out to the ownership, and I don't know which entity of Cumberland owns the corner lot on 58 and 106, the old Cumberland Farms, if anybody remembers that, where BRs used to be and all that. That building has become more and more derelict. There's a zoning issue there where it's an odd-shaped lot. And part of the dirt on the right-hand side, part of it is zoned business and part of it's zoned residential. I'm just thinking in terms of maybe touching base with the abutter and see if he had any problem with maybe trying to promote an article to change the residential portion of that to business.
Pure
If that would be helpful to a prospective buyer. I mean, I don't know if anybody's even looked at the place. I'm just trying to think if there's anything the
right.
planning board could maybe do to help improve that corner, because that is the biggest
I think it's
eyesore
the
possible.
deed restrictions, and it was sold internationally.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying, is it depends on who it is. Cumberland Farms is pretty tough. Stop and Shop is tough.
Cumberland
They put all
Farms
kind-
sold.
They put all kinds of restrictions on what you can't do. You can't sell milk, you can't sell gas, you can't blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But a lot of what the problem is there is the lot configuration in terms of trying to get in and out of their parking. In and out of this, not a problem, but parking, because it's like an L, and it's not very deep.
That building just has to come down and something has to.
Yeah,
next
the
to it.
the
That's
building
the
is
solution.
beyond
Repair.
any repair at this point.
Right.
I'm just thinking outside the box here, if there's anything we can find out that might be helpful
Right.
down
Well,
the road for somebody.
A Stop and Shop trucker said that a sister store was going in. Because he came by a standout the other day, and he was, rolled down the window. He was excited about all the American flags flying around, and he was tooting his horn. So we asked him what was in the back, and he said it was an empty trailer to remove. And we were like, oh. And he was like, don't worry, a sister store is coming in.
One of the sister stores is Halifax.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So it's going to be fine.
Well, that's good. I mean, I'm just saying.
But the other one, I
that-
think it's
that
deed
I see
restrictions.
in the realm of actually doing something proactive.
Yeah, the other one is deed restrictions, and it was sold internationally.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean something can't go in there that.
So the residential side, I believe, would be on the 106 next to Hopkins
It's
side.
next to Hopkins, yeah. You can go, in Halifax, you can go 50 feet into the more restrictive zone, but that may not be enough. I haven't actually looked at the map, I should do that.
I think it's like if it's, what is it with the, if you're 50%, like for instance, over on Carver Street, when they were in front of us, I have the bylaws, I should just read it, but what happens, it's like when you, because that was a residential lot where Mr. Carlson lived, and then it had business next to it, which I don't, they got a special use for industrial over there, which that was before, yeah, they did.
That's awkward.
So I don't know who issued the special use for the industrial, I guess the zoning board of
Well, unless
appeals.
it's
But-
a particular use
but there
that's
was a-
allowed by special permit in that zone. I mean, that's possible too.
Could be that. So I haven't looked into that to find out, but there's a bylaw that states something about, what is it, the 50% usage of the residential, which, you know which one I'm talking about?
Well, the one I was referring was that you can go 50%, 50 feet into the more restrictive.
Okay, that's what I was going for.
Hey, let's clear the rest of our agenda up so we can
Okay.
rock and roll. Meeting minutes, September 5th. Any deletions, corrections that anyone ever saw? I did not find any.
I was fine with it.
Okay, then I'll accept a motion to accept the minutes as presented for September 5th, 2024.
Moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Minute meetings for Thursday, September 19th, 2024. Any changes, deletions, or corrections? I did not find any.
It's fine.
I'll accept a motion to accept the minutes as presented for this September 19th, 2024.
Moved.
Second.
All those in favor of accepting the minutes as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Abstain,
What's that?
abstain.
Passes 3 in favor, 1 abstention. Okay, what else do we have?
How about a motion to adjourn?
We have nothing else, I think.
I think that was it.
I'll make a
I
motion
think
to
that's it.
adjourn.
I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
So moved.